Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to this week's Adobe Illustrator tutorial. This is Adobe Illustrator 2020 CC, and today we're going to be creating this beautiful desert landscape, and we'll be showing you from scratch how to make it using Adobe Illustrator, and you'll learn some useful skills along the way. So let's get started. First thing you want to do is you want to make a new document. This window will pop up here. You want to make this 2560 by 1440 pixels, that is. Make sure you name it whatever you want to name it. I've just called it Desert Scape Tutorial. And most important thing about setting up this document is the color options. If you click down on Advanced, it should be in RGB color, not CMYK, because RGB is much easier to use. And it means you can use some nice effects in Illustrator as well that we can't do with CMYK. So let's go ahead and click Create, and we're going to start making this from a lovely scratch document that comes up. So what we want to do first is I'm just going to name this layer in the top right. I'm going to name this Vector Artwork, so I know what layer is what. So that's the first step, relatively easy. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start by creating a background. And we're going to do that by using the rectangle tool. It does what it says on the tin. It makes a rectangle. So take your cursor, go to the end of the artboard where it will say intersect. If you don't see that, you can always go view and turn on your smart guides, and that will help you. So let's go to the top left corner, click and drag all the way to the bottom right until it snaps into place, release, and we get a nice rectangle. Now you see down here the fill and stroke colours. This is default to Photoshop, so we'll have a black stroke and no fill. We want to swap them around so we have a black fill and no stroke. So if we swap them around by clicking this arrow button, this double arrow button, you see the fill and stroke colours swap over. So we can click on the stroke. We don't want a stroke, we just want the fill. So we can click this none option here, and it will get rid of the stroke. And if you go back over to properties here, we can select a fill colour. Now there is a swatches pack that I've given you the link to down in the description. You can download that, and that will give you all the colours you need for this project. And once you've downloaded it, remember where you've saved it. To open it up in Illustrator, we can go Window and to Swatches. I'm just going to put my panel down here, like so, and then what we can do is we can click on this little library button down here, switch libraries menu, other library, and we can find where we saved it. So I saved mine in documents. It's called Desert Scape, if I spell it correctly, and there it is, desertscape.ai. So we can open that. Yeah, so you see when we open it, this window pops up with Desert Scape, and you see this folder at the bottom here. We have the Desert Scape swatches we need for this project. So to get these into our swatches panel, we can just simply double click on the folder icon, and you'll see they'll appear here, so we can get rid of that window. Now we want to fill this with the first swatch, so we'll go to properties, click on fill, and then we can just select the first swatch here, and that's a nice pink sort of purple colour. Now one important thing we want to do is when we finish with a layer, we want to lock the layer so we don't accidentally edit it later on. So we can go to layers, click down on the vector artwork layer, and you see rectangle. We can select that in the layers panel, and then this little box between the eye and the blue bar, we can click that and it will lock the layer. This now means that when we go to select things, we won't select the background, and we can't edit it unless we unlock it. So it's a good way to make sure you don't ruin your artwork. Now what we're going to do is we make sure we're going to save the document as we go. But what we're going to do is we are going to make the sun. So if we click on the rectangle tool, we right click on that, and then you can get the ellipse tool, which creates circles. So if I click and drag, you can see it's not a perfect circle. I can make sorts of ovals. I can try and make it perfect. But if I hold shift, it will always create a perfect circle. So I'm going to hold shift and drag to where I want it. I'm going to go back to my selection tool by clicking V on the keyboard, and I'm just going to move it around to where I think I want it. Now this fill color, if we go to properties, click on fill, this is the next sort of off-white color that we have in our swatches. So if you click on here, you can see it's still in the red spectrum, but it's an off-white. So that's the color we'll be using. No stroke, and that's what we're going to want. We can close the color panel there. So we've got a nice sun and a background. But what we want to create now are the sun's rays. So what we're going to do, now to make the sun's rays is we're going to use a trick where we can make the circle bigger around the same point, anchor point in the middle. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go Object Path and Offset Path. We're going to make that pixel radius something like 75, and I'm going to click OK, and you see it says shapes expanded. It's created a new layer for us, and it's created a new circle, the same proportions but outside the original circle, so the path of the circle has been offset. So we've still got the original circle and the one we just made. So we're going to do the same again, offset path, same radius. You can still do this as many times as you like. It just depends how many sun rays you want to have. So I think that will be sufficient there. So what we're going to do is, you see it looks like one big circle. Go in the middle. We obviously want that to be the off-white color we selected. But we can go to the next outside circle, and we can go to properties, opacity, and you can use this opacity slider here to drop down the opacity to something about, I think something about 40 or 50% will do us nicely. So we can click out of that, and then we can go to the next layer. We can reduce the opacity a bit more, something like 30%, 25, around there. It doesn't have to be exact, just a rough guide. And then we can go to the last layer and we can reduce the opacity to something like 22, and that will do us nicely. And you can see we got some nice sun rays here. I think the ones outside here are a bit too prominent, so we can reduce the opacity of these. And on the ones on the outside also, I really want the one on the end to be fading out like that. So I think that looks very nice if you ask me. But what we're going to want to do is, because this sun is all in different layers, we want to group the layers so we can edit them all together. So what you can do is you can go to the layers panel, hold down shift and select all these paths and ellipses, and we can go object group, and you see now they're one group, and I can change the scaling of it and the position all in one click. So let's get that somewhere nice like that. I think that looks nice there. So we're going to use that, and what we're going to do now is we're going to lock the layer because we finished with it. So we'll lock the group, and we're not going to accidentally edit it like we did with the rectangle. So now we're going to start creating the stars in the background. What we can do, there is a star tool, so we can again right click on the ellipse tool, click star tool, and we can zoom in because we want our stars to be quite small, and we can use the space bar and click and drag to get around our artwork. So we're just going to click and drag for a star. You can see this is 5 points. We really want our stars to be 4 points, so we can actually press up or down arrows to change the amount of points in our star. So we're going to go down to 4, and there is a nice 4-point star, but I think I want the angle a bit more acute, so the points are sharper on the edges. So what we can do is we can hold down the control key or the command key on Mac, and we can drag it out so the star has nice 4 acute angles that we can use. So we're going to zoom out, and I think this star is a little big, so we're just going to scale it down, holding shift so we don't mistakenly distort the image and it keeps its proportions. And I think that's still a little too big. We don't want these stars to be too big. We want them just to be a nice little feature in the background. So I think that's the right sort of size. We can look back, yeah, we can see a nice star there. So that's only one star. Now, there is a way to get more stars. If you want to keep duplicating the stars, you can do that, but that was very time consuming. But what we can do is we can use a nice little tool called the brush tool. So if we go over here, we click on the star, we can go to window and click brushes, and this will open the brushes window here. What we can do is we can click add new brush. We're going to click that. We're going to make this a scatter brush because we want to scatter the stars all across the background. So we click OK, and we can name something like stars, whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. The size fixed because I want all the stars to be this same size as this star here. The spacing, that can be random because we want the stars to be at different lengths to each other in the sky, and we're going to select the minimum and maximum points for the spacing. I've worked this out before, so it's 10 and 5,000, meaning they can go really close together or really far apart, and the brush will make it random. Scatter does the similar thing, so we're going to make these values the same, so 10 and 5,000, and rotation is fixed because I want all our stars nice and joined together, so they're all on the same rotation angle, so they're all facing up. So we're going to click OK. And now we created a new brush here, you can see it there, called stars. We're going to click on that brush. We're going to go to the brush tool, which is under the star tool we just used. And now what we can do is we can click and drag, and you see stars are made at random points. And you can do this as much as you want until you've got enough stars, trying to fill some space. So drag up here a bit and around here, and I think that's nice. I think that's enough, and that is how you can do the stars quickly. Now you can see in the layers we've just created a load of layers that are all the different stars. So we're just going to hold shift again and select all of these layers so we can group them. And this means we can edit them all together, and we'll go object group, where's group, and we'll call this something like stars. Oops, got caps lock. And then the layer underneath is a sun, so we can just call that sun. So here we have our stars, but we do have a problem. You can see that our stars are actually coming outside of the artboard here, which looks rather messy. I don't particularly like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a method that automatically deletes all the stars outside of the artboard. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the rectangle, and we're going to unlock that so we can select it. We're going to select our rectangle. We're going to go edit copy. We can lock that back up again because we've got it copied to our clipboard. And now we're going to select on the stars layer, and we're going to select the artwork. We're going to go to properties and click on the word opacity. Now you see here it has an X. If we double click on this, the stars go, and we're into masking mode. Now what this does is we can go edit, paste in front, and we can make the rectangle pure white. This tells Illustrator that anything inside the artboard we want to keep, anything outside we want to delete. So white means keep, black means delete. So because we made the whole of the artboard white and the rectangle is the same size of the artboard, it means it's going to keep all the stars inside the artboard and delete any outside. So we can click on opacity, go back to our white box and back to normal editing mode, and you can see there are now no stars outside of this particular artboard. So that's what we want. So we've done the stars, we've done the sun. Now let's do 2 shooting stars just for the aesthetics. So what we're going to do is we're going to create some nice shooting stars. So if we right click on the star tool again, we'll go to the line segment tool. We can zoom in here and we can just draw a nice line at an angle that you wish, and then we make sure the fill is that same off-white. We select this, go to properties, stroke, click on the stroke icon, and we can select the off-white, and there you go, you have a nice shooting star. But what we want to do actually is we want to make the end thicker so it looks like it's coming through the sky. So we can select this and we can go to the width tool here on the right. You can click Shift W to get the shortcut, and what we're going to do here is we're going to zoom in, go to the end of our shooting star. We're going to click on the end point, and what we're going to do is we're going to drag it out to be as thick as we want it, and then you can see it slowly gets thinner, and that is a nice shooting star. I think I might want to make the end a bit thicker, so I'll Shift W again to get the width tool, click on these anchor points, and I think I might make it a bit bigger, just like that. So that's one shooting star. We can duplicate this by holding Alt on a PC, Option on Mac, and we can just drag this over to where we want it. We can rotate it in the other direction. We can make it longer or shorter, and that looks quite nice, I think. So let's select both our shooting stars, and the original stars are holding Shift in the layers panel, and I think we want to reduce the opacity of all of these because I want them to be just in the background, not too prominent, and I think that looks nice. Just make sure this shooting star here is under the sun, because we don't want it to be above the sun, so we'll just drag it behind the sun layer, and that's looking rather nice, I do say so myself. So this is the background basically, and we're about halfway there. So what we're going to do now is going to make these hills that are in front. So there are quite a few hills, so like 4 or 5 hills, different shapes, going over the sun, which will have the sun's light reflected on it with different plants on it as well. So how we're going to create those is we're just going to zoom in. We're going to use the pen tool, or if you want you can use the curvature tool. It's up to you, but I prefer to use the pen tool. They work similarly, but just with the curvature tool you don't have to drag out to make a curve. So I'll show you what I mean. We can click on the end of the artboard here. We can go up to a place, and we're just going to create a rough guide of some mountains, some hills. It can really be any sort of shape that you want. So I'm just gonna maybe have some angles like this going out, and we'll continue this. So it really doesn't have to be perfect. It's very rough work, just making it as crazy as you like, or as normal as you like. It's all up to the designer, obviously. And I'm just clicking on the anchor point to get a straight line at the end of a curve, and we can come off the artboard. And what we're going to do is we're going to go down the artboard and connect it back up so it creates one singular shape. And we can do the same above, so we can make another sort of hill here, and we can use the same sort of method. The more time you take, the better it will be. But you don't have to agonize over this. It's really up to you how much time you want to spend on it. And I think that's good. And once again, we're going to bring it down, and we're going to connect it back up. So you want 4 of these. So 4 hills laid on top of each other. sorry, 5, yeah, 5 hills layered on top of each other, and I'll do that, and once I'm done I'll come back, so see you when you've done that. Right guys, I've made our hills, and we're here back on the tutorial again. So you can see I made some hills, made some little outcrops, whatever you want to call them, just about there. And this is what we have so far. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to colour these. None of them want a fill. None of them want a stroke. So we're going to select all of these, and we're going to click on the stroke icon here and click no stroke. Okay. Now we can't see them. What we're going to do is we're going to select our first object, and we're going to go to properties. We're going to click on the fill, and this is going to be a solid black, so we'll click on that black color right there. We're going to go to our next layer up, and we're going to make this a dark brown sort of reddish color. We'll go with where I think yeah, so we need a dark red, dark color, so I think that is the right color, or maybe this one, yeah. So let's go for this one, this dark brown reddish sort of color. We're going to do the same again. We're going to go to layers, go to the next layer up. This will be a sort of lighter color, so I think we make this dark purple. Next up the layers, we're going to click the next one up. We're going to make this a lighter purple, and we'll go to the layer on the top, and we're going to make this the lightest color we have, which is this light purple here. Yeah, these two are the same, so it doesn't matter which swatch we use. Now you can see that the top layer is on the top and the bottom layer is on the bottom, and we need to swap them around so it is layered. So what we're going to do is we're going to go here, and we're going to drag this down to the end of the vector art group, and we're going to do the same for this next layer, making sure it's on top of the bottom layer. And then we're going to do the same again. So we're just going to reverse the order of the layers, essentially. And there we have it. We've reversed the order of the layers. I want to group all these layers so we can edit them together. So we're going to select them. We're going to go Object and Group. And there we have it. We're going to call this Hills. And there we have the group of the hills. Now we want to move this down because you can see the black isn't totally covering the end of the artboard. Now again, as we had the problem with the stars, we've just got the same problem here. The mountains are going outside of the artboard, and we need to fix that. So we're going to do the same again. We're going to unlock the rectangle layer. We're going to click on it. We're going to go Edit, Copy. We're going to lock it back up again. We're going to select our hills layer, Properties, Opacity, double click on this X arrow, Edit, Paste in front, and we'll make this a solid white colour to tell Illustrator we want to keep the mountains in the artboard. We'll go back to opacity, click back on the original layer, close this, and there we have all the mountains are only in the artboard. None have escaped out, so we're just going to knock this down a bit because you can see we've got this slither down here, and I want it fully black on the bottom. So we're just going to nudge this down and I think what we're going to do is we're going to go directly into this path, and we're going to the direct selection tool, and we're just going to nudge this down a bit here. So that looks brilliant. So we've done the hills, we've done the sky, we've done the sun, we've done the stars, it's looking very good so far, but what we're going to do next is we're going to create the cactuses. And I'm going to do the same again like I did with the hills. I'm going to use the pen tool. So I'm going to get the pen tool here. I'm going to start building it over here off the artboard so I can actually see what I'm going to do. And we can just sort of maybe improvise a bit, create a little bulge here, if you will, going up. And as I'm doing this, I'm just thinking, well, what's the eventual outcome going to be? And this is sort of the branch, and we can go up again here. We can make this slightly curved. You can make a top here and around about here. So really just make your cactus the shape you want it to be. Don't worry about it being too perfect, because nature is not in perfect shape. So just have a play around with the cactus and make sure you get it just how you want it. I'll come back when I've done mine. Right, so I've got my cactus here that I made. I've joined all the anchor points up together, and this looks quite nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this onto our artboard, and I'm going to put it somewhere on the resting on the black layer. So I think I might put it in front of the sun. That's quite nice. Scale it up, and then what we can do is we can hold Alt or Option on the Mac, and we can drag it to other places to get 3 or 4 cactus in places that you like. And I think that looks nice, so I'm happy with these cactus where they are. And we are nearly done. There is only one more thing to do, and that is the gradient on the background. So we're going to unlock the background layer so we can edit it. We're going to select it in the layers panel, going to properties, fill. Now what we want to do is we want to select this black to white gradient. We can open gradient options, and here we have a white and a black gradient stopper. And what we can do is we can drag the original background color from the swatches panel onto the white stopper, and we can drag this nice beige orange sort of color onto the second stopper. And now what we want to do is we want to edit the gradient, and I'm going to do that using the gradient tool in the toolbar here. So we can click on this, and we can just click and drag to show where we want our gradient to go. And it's given the effect that the sun's rays are bouncing off the hills, so we can adjust this gradient stopper to get it where we want. We can compress the orange or make it more prominent. I think something around there is looking nice. It's fading in nicely. Go back to our selection tool. We can close this panel, and that is our Desert Scape looking beautiful and done. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. We learned lots of new skills in Adobe Illustrator. I hope you're inspired to make your own artwork like this. It's a good way to practice is to find artwork, vector art on the internet, and try and recreate it, use some of the skills we used today. But that has been it for this video. If you did enjoy the video, hit a like. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button. Make sure you subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And until I see you next time, have a good day and goodbye.